Hey everyone, Rustabout Collector here. Today we are going to talk about some Star Wars Clone Trooper bootleg action figures. And if you've been around on the channel for a while, you know I've talked about quite a few different bootlegs, some of them good like this 3 3/4 inch Mace Windu's Battalion Clone Trooper, and some of them quite cursed. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the new 6-inch Black Series bootlegs from AliExpress, and we're going to be performing a lead test on the paint apps. There have been a lot of questions. Many of you have DM'd me over on Instagram whether or not these bootlegs are safe, and this is going to help us determine if they are. There's been some controversies in the past with just bootleg toys in general being shipped over from AliExpress and things like Alibaba. A lot of those products are not heavily regulated or checked for safety regulations, so you might get some bad stuff, and it has made it in the news recently that some toys have been found with lead paint and other toxic chemicals. Now, I would say with the high quality that we see here with these figures, I doubt that they have any kind of lead paint on them, but that is what we are going to find out in this video. Now, as you can see, the company that's been producing these has made quite a few variations of Clone Troopers so far. Many of them are copies of official Black Series figures, like the Shock Trooper, the 212th, 13th Iron Battalion, and the Mace Windu's Battalion over here on the right. However, what really got me excited were the clones that Hasbro hasn't made yet. So we have Commander Bo here, we have Commander Appo based on the Hot Toys version, we have just a plain shiny in the new clone mold, which Hasbro has not done yet, and we have a 501st Clone Trooper in the new clone mold. What's also impressive is the rate at which they have been making these and turning out new designs. They released the 13th Iron Battalion and the Mace Windu's Battalion pretty close together, and they released these two commanders pretty close together, and the time between them releasing these two clones here and these two commanders was about a month, which is incredibly fast compared to the release rate that we've been seeing from other toy companies. Now, because you are buying these directly from the distributor over in China, they do take about a month to get here. A lot of times I've ordered these and then just kind of forgot about them, and then one day, surprise, they're in the mail. And what's crazy is that at the time of recording this video, they just announced 3 new designs: Clone Trooper Waxer, Boyle, and a 212th Commander. Normally I wouldn't do this for a bootleg company, but I will link it down in the description if you want to check them out over on AliExpress. Maybe pick some of these up for yourself, but stick around till I do the lead test before you go buy any of these. Now, something to note here as well is if we take the bootleg and we stand it up next to a official Black Series figure from Hasbro, you will notice there are some subtle differences. First and foremost, the bootlegs are slightly shorter just by a small fraction of an inch. You may also notice that the bootleg is a much more crisp white color. It's like a pure white color, whereas the official figure is just a little bit off-white. I don't think necessarily one is better than the other, but it may bug you if you're really particular about your colors. And likewise, the markings here on the official clone are just a shade lighter in the orange tones, and this one I would say is a little bit more true to some of the official artwork for the 212. But overall, if you stack these guys up on a shelf or in some toy photography, or you want to use these for some customs so you weather both of them up, I think they look really nice together. There isn't anything that's glaringly different about the bootlegs or the official figures that would set them apart and make one stand out from the other. The articulation on these figures remains the same. It is 1 for 1 with the official Hasbro figures, even down to the butterfly shoulder joints. One thing I did notice with these bootlegs is that occasionally they'll have a loose joint. Some joint just won't have as much friction going on with it as the official figure. It's never been so bad that, it's been unable to be posed, but it does happen. I've also noticed that the joints are very smooth and easy to move. With the Hasbro figures, they just feel like there's a little bit more friction going on there, and specifically with the Hasbro feet, they have very sharp detents. You can kind of see there how that clicks into place, whereas with the bootleg figure, it's actually just a normal swivel, so there's no detents to note, and you can just move that foot back and forth. However, I have noticed that when I have these on my shelf, that foot joint tends to kind of just, ever so slightly move like that, and you can have figures toppling off the shelves. That does kind of depend on how you have them posed, and I just put a little bit of sticky tack on their feet to make sure that even if that joint does give way a little bit, they're not going to fall off the shelf. And one final thing to note with these bootlegs is that if you are a customizer, there are some nice benefits to using the bootleg body. Namely, the hand joints can pop out very easily, almost like there would be interchangeable hands here, and also the neck joint is very easily popped off. with almost no effort. With an official Hasbro figure, typically you'd actually have to heat that joint. Now it does make it kind of difficult to get the neck joint separated from the head joint, but by and large it's just a little bit easier if you're trying to do some customization, even if you just want to pop that head off to maybe repaint the body. So from an overall perspective with these figures, I really appreciate what they are allowing Star Wars fans to be able to do. Many of these clones have been hard to find on shelves, like the Walmart Shock Trooper and the Walgreens 187th and 212th. So it gives casual fans a chance to have these clones in their collection, maybe even army build them a little bit, and I really don't see anything wrong with that when distribution has been what it has been for the last couple of years when it comes to clone troopers and Hasbro and all of that. Additionally, I feel like the people that are making these bootlegs have a great deal of interest in making cool clones. I feel like maybe they're collectors themselves, or maybe they're just involved in the community and they know what is lacking from Hasbro these days. Never in my wildest dreams would I have expected to get a Commander Appo based on the Hot Toys design, let alone a Commander Bow here. Even though they don't technically call it Commander Bow, it is Commander Bow from the old 3 3/4 inch line. And even something as simple as a plain white clone trooper is a great addition to any army. It's great for customizers, and it's really something that Hasbro should have done the minute that they made this new clone mold. So while I wouldn't normally support purchasing bootleg figures and stuff, at least in the case of these 501st, the shiny back there, and the new 212 clone troopers that they're making, Hasbro hasn't made them, so where else are you going to get these for your collection? Ultimately, please take all of this with a grain of salt though. We are about to do a lead test on these figures, and if it comes back that these have lead paint on them, then I would absolutely say do not risk handling these, do not risk buying them. Even though they look cool, it's not worth messing around with lead paint and potentially other toxic chemicals just to have a cool action figure. I truly hope that these tests come back negative because I really do enjoy what they are doing with these bootleg figures, and obviously I have collected quite a few myself. But without further ado, let's get into the testing here. Now, I did already try this once with a test from my local hardware store. However, I should have known from the dust on the packaging that it was probably an expired test kit. So I got this new one off of Amazon. You got these little swabs here, and you're just supposed to soak them in white vinegar to get the little tip there wet. So we have our white vinegar here. I did get this little test confirmation card though with that first kit, so we're going to try this first just to make sure that these are working. So the instructions say to wet this in the white vinegar and then wait until this tip turns orange. That means the test is activated. And then we test one swab per dot here. And those turned yellow almost instantly, so that's good. That means we have a good fast reaction kit here that is definitely not expired. We'll do our first one here, just rubbing it on there like so. And that is turning a nice little shade of pink. That's exactly what this test confirmation card should do. It should give us a pink reading on these swabs, which means lead paint is detected. So if we use the swab on any of these figures and it turns red or pink, that means we have a problem with some lead paint. So now it is time to ready our test subjects here. I'm choosing clones from various stages of their production. The 501st is one of their first clones that they've done. The 13th Iron is one of the more recent ones. And we're going to do the most recent with Commander Bow as well. With some of these that have painted brows, the brow paint does chip off very easily, as you can see here on this one. That just came off with my fingernail basically. And I think that's a great place to start with these swabs because that just means that there's clearly exposed paint there, it hasn't been sealed or anything, and a test will probably be most accurate on that paint right there. So we'll dip it in, turns yellow, and we'll give it a quick little wipe here on the brow. We'll just see what happens. So far so good. It does not appear that there's any pink or red appearing on this swab after testing the brow, and it did kind of overlap into the blue stripe just a little bit as well, and that did not turn pink either, so that's a good sign. We'll do another one here on the chest as well, just because there's different plastic and possibly different paint types, and I want to be doubly sure that we are working with safe materials here. Once again, that swab came back clean. I don't see any pink or red appearing on that. The camera does pick up some discoloration just from like shadows and stuff, but as you saw from the test swabs, those turn definitely a bright pink when it encounters lead, and these are not doing that. For reference, once again, this is one of those test swabs, and you can see that that turned a bright shade of red when it encountered lead. And finally, for this 501st Trooper, I just wanted to test the shoulder bells because, once again, different plastic type, possibly different paint apps, and you can never be too careful. Once again, I'm not seeing any red or pink tones on that, so that seems like this figure is clean. Next up, let's test the 13th Iron Battalion. You can kind of see here the swabs have just like some like gray markings on them, probably from manufacturing. So I just want to be clear that that is there before we even dip it in the vinegar. So just be aware of that, because that could almost make it look like there's like red showing up or something, but it's not. It's just gray on the swab. And I am rolling the swab as I go just to try and get as much coverage as possible, and that should show up as a bright pink smear all the way around. But so far, we got nothing. And I will do this one on the brow line once again as well, just to be safe. But so far, I'm really feeling like we're just going to get a bunch of negatives on this test. Nothing to be seen there, which is also a good sign. And finally, Commander Bo, even though I have a feeling like this is just going to come back negative, we are going to be thorough with this video, so we'll do one more test across Commander Bo. Starting off, we will test here on the pauldron, just to see what we get here, because this is a new element for Commander Bo and Apo, so maybe, I don't know, maybe they changed their production a little bit. So far, we are clean. We will also test the white paint here on the pauldron, because that is a paint app, not cast white plastic. And we got nothing. And finally, we'll test the helmet. We're doing both the blue stripe and the black stripe here. And we are getting no activation. Now, just for grins, we're going to do a test on this horribly cheap bootleg Black Series Commander Gree. I've had this guy for quite a while, and I've always just had my doubts, because this is a very clearly bad bootleg with a little LED light there in his chest. Kind of makes me wonder what the level of safety was in the production of this figure. So just for funsies, here we go. Let's see if we are handling Commander Lead and not Commander Gree. It is coming back clean. I'm glad, because I have, you know, handled and messed around and recorded videos with this figure, and I would hate to find out that this was Commander Lead. Now, for the sake of thoroughness, we must also test his shoulder pads and make sure that those are not toxic either. And we seem to be safe. Nothing there to spot. So there we have it, I guess. I am definitely relieved to find that these do not have lead paint on them. It was always in the back of my mind when buying and handling these that they might just not be, you know, up to current spec as far as safety goes. And hopefully this might put your mind at ease if you were on the fence about picking some of these up. Once again, I will put the link down in the description there so that you can check these out over on AliExpress. There's only one seller for these. They seem to be very trusted. I've bought all of mine from the same seller that I will have linked down there, so you shouldn't have to worry about anything there. Likewise, while you're down there, I would appreciate it if you would leave a like on this video, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for more interesting Star Wars content. And if you are considering getting any of these, and maybe you only want to get one, or you want to just get one to test it out, I would definitely suggest either getting Commander Bo here or Commander Apo. They definitely bring some of the most unique elements from these bootlegs together into a really unique format. And of course, Commander Bo made it onto my top 10 figures of 2022. Now, I probably shouldn't have made that list before I did the lead test, but hey, you know, worse things have happened. But anyways, that is where I'm going to wrap up this video. And if you made it this far in the video, have a wonderful evening, noon, or night, depending on when you're watching this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will catch you all in the next video.